What's up, people? Welcome to your one-stop shop for the biggest wrestling stories this week. This is Wrestling Roundup Weekly. My name is Mex, aka WrestleManiac UK. I'm alongside my co-host Ignacio. On today's show, whole load of topics. We're talking Keith Lee and if he's about to show up in AEW. We're talking Shane McMahon and how he unceremoniously has left WWE. We'll talk about the return of Goldberg as well. And we got some other items that we're going to discuss today. So if you're watching on the YouTube, make sure you smash the like button, subscribe to Wrestling Republic on YouTube as well. And big up to everyone that's watching us right now on IG Live. Ignacio, how are you doing today?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. Coming out of Rumble week and coming into looking forward to what's going on in WrestleMania, all the developments that within WWE. A lot of interesting stuff to talk about today.
There is. And like we said, it's the hot news so far this week is the imminent debut, it seems, of Keith Lee. So it's being said that Keith Lee has put pen to paper on an AEW contract, and that it's looking like he could debut anytime soon. We saw Tony Khan say that, there's going to be someone walking through the forbidden door this week on AEW Dynamite, taking on, I think it's Isaiah Cassidy in the Face of the Revolution like qualifying match. So everyone's saying that this could be Keith Lee. There's some other names being bandied around, Jeff Hardy, although I'm not sure if his 90 days is up. Of course, there's other names as well. I think it's personally Keith Lee, and if it's not Keith Lee, it could be Shane Strickland, Swerve Scott. But what's your thoughts on the debut? Do you think it is going to be Keith Lee?
Well, I was thinking if he doesn't have any 90-day attachment to it, what about Johnny Gargano? Does he have a 90-day commitment before he can sign with anybody else?
He doesn't.
I was thinking Johnny Gargano
left. Johnny Gargano left when at the end of his contract. So he actually stayed for the entirety of his contract and then left. So Johnny Gargano he can just turn up. Yeah.
I was thinking it was going to be Johnny Gargano because I think right now he might be a little bit better fit, especially going into that ladder match. But if it is Keith Lee, I'm not too impressed or inclined with Keith Lee. I was never too impressed with him in NXT. I thought Bronson Reed was a bigger personality as far as his charisma and his mic skills in NXT. And I thought he had better ring skills. I thought he was a lot farther along than Keith Lee because he had 10 plus years coming in experience. So I'm not too impressed with Keith Lee coming into AEW. I think it's going to be hard for him to find somewhere to fit. Their roster right now is too stacked with talent. I don't know exactly where he'd fit. I'd say maybe he'd be a good fit for Team Taz. But then they already got Powerhouse Hobbs, and Powerhouse Hobbs is a new up-and-coming talent. Keith Lee's been around the block a little, so that'll take some shine coming into, unless they're going to move him into the top of the card and have him win the ladder match and give line up another opponent for Hangman Page right off the bat. I don't see anywhere where he really fit very well.
I think if they did bring him in, that the one place I do agree that there is a lack of space for him to kind of slide into and fit. I definitely agree with that. I think they can make space by doing something rather drastic, like bringing him in. He qualifies for, the ladder match or whatever it's going to be for the TNT Championship, and he wins the TNT Championship straight off the bat. I think if they make a big star of him and make a big deal of him right from the jump, he forces a position into the AEW ranks. With the TNT Championship as well, you don't need to have a certain amount of wins or rankings or anything like that to go for the title. It is pretty much open, like an open challenge sort of situation. And I agree with you to the extent that, that it is kind of getting very full in AEW, but they can do something very drastic and special here and make him seem like a big deal by giving him like a big win, big championship win straight off the bat. But I only just wonder now what if that is possibly a plan. Sammy Guevara would now have had like 2 short, meaningless TNT title reigns. And I'm not sure whether they would do that to Sammy Guevara for Keith Lee. What's your thoughts?
Well, it just depends on how much. If we go with the scenario that you're presenting, it would just depend on how much stock that they're really willing to put behind Keith Lee. Now, Sammy Guevara, that's 2 title reigns. Sammy Guevara shouldn't have had. I believe that Sammy Guevara shouldn't even had the TNT. He shouldn't even beat Miro in the first place. The only reason why I thought they hadn't beat Miro is because Miro had some type of injury, I believe, because he's been out ever since Full Gear. I think they had him come in, fill in for Jon Moxley in Full Gear, and he had a tremendous match with Bryan Danielson, but he's been out since then, and he's been coming out in Dynamite, cutting his vignettes or promos or what have you. Now let's go on with continue with the scenario that you have for Keith Lee. It's similar to what Miro had. Miro started off as a comedy character, and he started cutting those tremendous promos, Dynamite, lead to his TNT championship win, and then he continued with the promos. Miro, as he developed the promo skills, and he started becoming good at promos and gets personality and character development. And Keith Lee didn't necessarily get the chance to do that on the main roster anyway in WWE. So I think if they go with the scenario that you're presenting, that he beats Sammy for the title, I think in order for him to get more connection with the crowd, he's going to have some sort of mouthpiece attached to him.
Well, you don't think Keith Lee has the charisma or anything like that to go alone?
Look, he did okay on NXT, but that's because I think he had Triple H behind him and Shawn Michaels and Road Dogg and that crew. But he goes up to WWE in the main roster, and he has a bunch of writers writing all this ridiculous promos. And I don't think that the promos that they were writing for him, it's the same thing with a lot of talent up there. The promos that they write for the talent don't match their personality, and a lot of the times it's out of their personality and character. They're not writing, they're trying to write scripts and promos for actors. These people are not actors, right? And they're writing doesn't necessarily match their character. They don't know how to convey it or present it. Now, if Keith Lee is left alone, just kind of like they do in AEW with a lot of the talent, I don't think him in on itself can be left alone to cut great promos. He has a little bit of charisma, but I think he still needs, as far as his promo work, he needs a lot of coaching. I think it would be good to maybe put him with a mouthpiece at first. Yeah. His in-ring skills, I believe his in-ring skills, they're okay. They'll come along. I mean, he's very athletic in the ring. He's shown what he can do in the ring. I think he's good. His ring skills are good, and he'll develop, continue to develop. I think as far as his promos, he still needs a lot of work to give a good presentation.
Fair enough. Well, yeah, I think Keith Lee is a big get for them. I think he's one of these people that in recent years has just become, an indie darling. Everyone loves Keith Lee, sort of thing.
Absolutely.
Everyone wants to see him do well, and if he is to debut on Wednesday night, I think he'll blow the roof off the place. And be very interesting to see how they use him. Like we've both agreed, the space for him in AEW looks very, very minimal, but I'm sure they could make him feel special with a big TNT win by Revolution or so, and really make him be taken seriously. I even think in some aspects he could fill that void sort of that Miro has left, in kind of a dominant TNT champion, just in a different kind of way.
Well, I think they just, especially in WWE, that they concentrated too much on what type of base he can make. But I think as long as they work on changing maybe changing his personality, change that, trying to make him more of a heel, I think he'd be a great monster heel, especially for somebody to put up against Hangman Page, who needs a lineup of people to defend the title against. Because, like I talked about this earlier on another podcast, is that the issue that came up with Hangman Page is he didn't have a lineup of challengers for him. He had that Bryan Danielson, but outside the Bryan Danielson, they bring in Lance Archer, who coming off of a broken neck. They're throwing him in there, and that totally negates their top 10 rankings, which they highlight every week. It totally negates that. They throw Lance Archer in there, and that's because I believe they don't have an adequate lineup of challengers for Hangman Page. So Keith Lee can have a good build-up, right, as a top heel, and then later on, not necessarily maybe a big pay-per-view match, but one of these specials they have on Dynamite, the Fight for the Fallen or whatever they have in between now and maybe Double or Nothing. He can be an adequate challenger for Hangman Page as a top big man heel.
Yeah, I just think with that position, I think you mentioned, we see it with the likes of Lance Archer, and when they're put in that position one too many times and then they don't win and it doesn't come over, then it's like, do you really believe this person in this position? They have to eventually win for it to be believed. And with Lance Archer in that respect, he's been in this kind of position for the last 2 years or so and never won the big one. Had chances at the TNT title. He's gonna face Hangman this week for the AEW title and probably not going to win. So it's like, yeah, how many times can we actually believe that this guy is going to, or good enough to challenge at this level? Bossman Ben in the chat, he says Keith Lee could do huge things in AEW, but unfortunately, I reckon they'll waste him. Now, my one thing with AEW is that they have not shown us that they can handle a big man. And when I say big man, we're talking about, the Jake Hagers, Wardlow, Will Hobbs, Brian Cage, these bigger superstars than the trademark quote unquote indie style wrestlers. Even if these wrestlers are wrestling an indie style, just because they're physically bigger, AEW has shown us that they can't book these guys well. It's been about, we're coming to 3 years now, and there is no evidence of anyone being booked well. Wardlow is doing all right currently, but that's because he's very much in a story of kind of breaking away from MJF. The real test for Wardlow will be if once he breaks away from MJF, how he's then booked. I don't understand how they've struggled. I know Brian Cage isn't the most charismatic of people, but I don't understand how they've managed to not book Brian Cage well, even though Brian Cage is out on the other indies all weekend, putting on some great matches. Will Hobbs, yeah, okay, fair enough. He's still kind of new in his career, but it's very telling. It's showing us that they are struggling to book these bigger athletes, and Keith Lee will fall into that category. Do you think that there is that possibility as well, that Keith Lee can become another Brian Cage, if you like?
Well, I'll take a Wardlow and Powerhouse out of the equation, because they're still very green. And I think as far as Wardlow, they're doing a good job as far as pumping the brakes on him and with his character development. He has kind of like that Psycho Sid or Sid Justice kind of persona or charisma to him, where whatever he does, and all he does is a power bomb, as we've seen. But I mean, the crowd just lights up for it. They want to see it over and over again. Very similar, but Psycho Sid, or Sid Justice had at the beginning of his career. Powerhouse Hobbs, I think they're pumping the brakes a little bit too much with him. We've seen his personality and his promos and his facials and his in-ring skills develop especially within the last year. And whenever he does wrestle, I can't tell you the last person that the last time he competed on Dynamite, who he lost to. Whenever he does compete, they have him lose. He jobs, and I guess it's just paying your dues. I don't know what you call it. I think they put the brakes much on him. I think he's ready to be a star. But let's take those two guys out of the equation, and let's look at some of the guys you mentioned. Jake Hagar, who is NCAA heavyweight champion. He had a big run in WWE. He was pushed to the moon, former heavyweight champion, on and on and on. And then basically he's just been, fucking Chris Jericho's muscle or heavy, and they really developed much with him. Lance Archer, they brought him in from New Japan Pro Wrestling. He was expecting a lot of big things from Lance Archer. And he's been, even when he's healthy, he's up par. He's had some okay matches with Jon Moxley, and he's a great athlete. But, I mean, he hasn't been booked big well as a big man at all. Same thing with Brian Cage. Brian Cage, tremendous athlete for a person his size. He had WWE written all over him as far as, his size, look. No, he doesn't have great promo. You can easily put a mouthpiece on him, which is what they did with Taz. But, I mean, he's nowhere to be seen. It seems like he started off at the top. He had that title match with Jon Moxley, and it's just been kind of staggering and downhill from there. They've been putting more focus on Ricky Stark and a little bit on Powerhouse Hobbs in that faction. But they haven't booked Brian Cage very well either, so they don't have a history. Like you make a good point, it's not booking the big man appropriately. So will that happen with Keith Lee? Who knows? They did. I don't know if you want to consider Miro a quote unquote big man, but they did okay with Miro. And until he got injured, they did all right. He was coming along, and I really think that because of he got injured, that's why they took the title off of him. But I mean, it's hit or miss with their big people. I think Keith Lee, he does have some potential, but like I said, I think it's just going to come down to skills, how we work these different athletes in the ring. A lot of these guys that are in AEW, at least the lower card guys, he's faced them in the Indies. He's familiar with a few of them. Right, like with Darby Allin, for example, and Ethan Page and a couple of the other guys. He's familiar with a lot of these guys, so I think he has a lot of potential. It's just like anybody else. If they book him well, if they know what to do, they succeed. But I think first off, where is he going to fit in, and that's going to be the big question.
Very, very interesting stuff, especially if he does turn up on Wednesday. I'm going to be very, very excited, but of course, it's not just like we're saying, it's not just him turning up there. It's okay, what's the plan for him, for the next 6 months?
And I'm going to say,
go on.
Absolutely. I'm going to say this, and you'll hardly ever hear me pick a smaller guy over a big guy, but I'm kind of hoping that it is Johnny Gargano, because I think he can do wonderful things in the ring with a lot of the guys that are there already.
Yeah, I think the only thing that makes it not going to be Johnny Gargano is because I think he's still waiting for the imminent arrival of his newborn, which is due this month. And he did say that, yeah, he's waiting to kind of the newborn to come, and then he'll get back to wrestling and stuff. So yeah, we'll see. But all right, let's move on. Let's talk some WWE, particularly this Shane McMahon story. That Shane McMahon was given his marching orders from WWE post the Rumble. And yeah, there is just it seems to me, because different stories, different reports are coming out every day in regards to this. It seems to me that he is kind of being blamed for the Rumble, maybe the booking of the Rumble, maybe the booking of TV post the Rumble. I still think it's quite unclear, despite lots of things coming out. However, I know you guys probably talked about the Rumble last week. I think the one big crime that I did see was the fact that Shane McMahon was Final Four in the Royal Rumble. Like, what was your thoughts when you saw Shane McMahon's inclusion in the Royal Rumble and him lasting so long, and then these reports about him losing his job at WWE?
Well, I'm glad. I was kind of glad to talk about this. I've been waiting to talk about this with somebody all week. So first of all, with the reports being out there, you got to remember first, is that nothing goes on TV without fans' approval.
Yeah.
Right or wrong about that? Would we agree on that? That nothing goes on TV without Vince McMahon's approval? Okay. So you can't necessarily blame Shane McMahon for wanting to make changes to the booking of the Royal Rumble. And I'm pretty sure they were back and forth as far as his involvement. Now, I'll say this, that everybody's saying how Shane McMahon was quick to go. How much involvement did Shane McMahon exactly have with the company to begin with? He was never laid out or mentioned as a producer for any matches, whether it be on Raw or SmackDown. Shane McMahon always comes back for the Royal Rumble. He has for a long time as far as a producer, because I think it holds a special place in his heart, because his very first match, I believe he officiated, was a Royal Rumble match back in the day. So he always comes back to help produce the Royal Rumble. From my understanding, from reading reports, so forth, was his only appearance wasn't going to be at the Royal Rumble. They had something set up for him in Saudi Arabia and possibly at WrestleMania. Now, as far as his involvement in the Royal Rumble, number one, he got a huge pop in the Rumble. I mean, the crowd popped when they heard that music and his little dance and shuffle thing he does, what have you. But I mean, he got I got a couple issues. I had to do with him throwing out Kevin Owens like a sack of potatoes. I thought that was bullshit, right? And then the standoff with Drew McIntyre, I didn't see an issue with that. I don't have an issue with him being one of the final four, because unless you win the Royal Rumble, or unless you're the Iron Man, which is the guy who lasts, 30, 45 minutes or whatever, who gives a fuck about everybody else? You know what I mean? So, unless you're the guy that lasts the longest or what have you, who gives a shit about who's final four, who's final two? Nobody cares. Nobody should care. I didn't have a problem with in the Royal Rumble as a participant and the way he went about booking it. If that was his final product, no issues as far as who he made contact with as far as in the Rumble, except for Kevin Owens. 53-year-old fucking Shane McMahon dumping Kevin Owens out like a sack of potatoes. That was bullshit. Other than that, I didn't have an issue with it. And as far as him being let go from the company, I think it's much ado about nothing, because I don't think he had much involvement with the company to begin with.
Now, this is where I'm kind of stuck on this story, because I'm sure he left WWE a while ago. And like you said, maybe he comes back to help produce these Rumbles because it's got a special place in his heart. I know he's been involved in producing the last 2 Rumbles, and then apparently this one this year. But yeah, like for him to come back and then go, like, again, like you said, nothing gets on TV without Vince approving it anyway. So did he make a decision and then Vince allowed it, and then now the decision looks rubbish? Everyone's turning on Shane McMahon. I'm not too sure, but like I said, it seems as if he is being used as the scapegoat or for any kind of poor creative.
And then from when I read, a lot of his ideas had for the Royal Rumble were rejected by Vince McMahon. So who knows? Maybe he saw the layout of the Royal Rumble and said, "Hey, this is bullshit. We need to do this. We need to put this guy here, or this guy needs to win, or this guy needs to be whatever, first or last, or whatever." And changes got rejected. The Rumble might have been better with Shane McMahon's ideas, but they got rejected by Vince. I heard that also. But I mean, who knows? This Royal Rumble, one thing about it is it definitely felt different. It just didn't feel like the Royal Rumble to me. But I mean, like Royal Rumble's past, it's definitely one of the worst I've ever seen, like I mentioned before. But I mean, who knows? Maybe his ideas would have improved it. That nobody's taking that into consideration, But the fact is nothing gets on TV without Vince McMahon's approval. So maybe Shane, as far as producing the Rumble and the order, maybe that's all his involvement he had. And as far as the storylines thing into it, maybe all his ideas got rejected. Who knows? But one thing is, like I said, as far as him let go, it's much ado about nothing. He had involvement with the company. So there you go.
Yeah, yeah. I think like I said, there's a lot of kind of conflicting reports and a lot of stuff coming out. I think it could have been interesting him having a match, which is seems to be some of the news that came out at Elimination Chamber in Saudi Arabia, because that is kind of like a one-off show in isolation. They're beginning to kind of embed what happens in these Saudi shows into their regular TV programming. They're beginning to take it a bit more seriously, it seems. But other than that, I think, yeah, that's where it could have, began and ended. Royal Rumble appearance, Saudi Arabia. I'm hearing talks that he was going to, go to WrestleMania, maybe wrestle for the WWE Championship at WrestleMania, because they don't know what they're doing with the WWE Championship match at WrestleMania. Like, why are we resorting to all people, all part-timers, Shane McMahon?
No, it's just that makes no sense. I think that's far from probably what they were thinking. I mean, I think because I saw reports as far as well, Riddle was supposed to win it, and then then Randy Orton was floated out there to win the Royal Rumble, which I wouldn't have been disappointed with at all. And then finally they just decided on making Brock the last entry and having him win it. But Shane McMahon winning the Rumble or Elimination Chamber, and I think that's just so far from the truth, and it's bullshit. I don't think they were going that way at all. The things that I've seen is either they were going to tie Shane McMahon in storyline with Austin Theory and Vince McMahon, or have him start a program with Seth Rollins, which should have started at the Royal Rumble. Maybe him something to the effect as far as him eliminating Rollins or something to that nature or something. I don't know if Rollins was in the Rumble. I don't know, something like that. That's what I read or saw.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, there's been a lot of news since last weekend, since the Rumble, this past week, about Shane McMahon leaving, why he left, more details and stuff on why he left. Nothing is crystal clear in my opinion. But yeah, I'm done with this story. Any last thing?
Yeah, he's not. He's just not, like I said. His involvement in the company, any was limited, and I think if he's not going to hurt for money, it was like WWE was like a part-time deal with him. So I don't think Shane McMahon even cares to have involvement in wrestling whatsoever. So, or sports entertainment crap or whatever. So I don't think it's like I said, much ado about nothing. Yeah. I'm trying to stop doing this. Something else. Fuck.
All right, let's crack on and let's talk about a return we saw this past week on SmackDown. Goldberg is back in the WWE. Goldberg has laid out a challenge to Roman Reigns, that he wants a shot at the Universal Championship at Elimination Chamber. I believe it's been granted. That is the match we're getting. Now, I'm very. It's how can I say this? Double-edged sword, I think, is the best way to put it, because I think now we all know, it's common knowledge that this is Goldberg's last match on his WWE contract, his current WWE contract. This is the last obligated match he has to do, which it's a sigh of relief. It's a thank you. That's how I feel. However, at the same time, I think this is a complete nonsense. Instead of building new stars, they're bringing back the likes of Goldberg. I know they wanted to do this match 2 years ago at WrestleMania, but then Roman went off sick because this was the middle of the pandemic. So I kind of understand them wanting to still get this match done. He is another big name value person to put in front of, Roman. However, when it comes to championship matches, he lost to Drew at last year's Royal Rumble. He lost to Lashley last year. I think sometime in the August or September SummerSlam, he lost to Lashley, didn't he? Yeah. So he lost to Lashley. Then he's lost another championship. He lost to Braun Strowman, obviously, at the WrestleMania that he should have faced Roman. That his last few championship matches, he's lost all of them. He's lost every single one. Why does this guy? Yeah, Bobby Lashley, Braun Strowman, Drew McIntyre, he's lost them all. why does he get to just come back and demand a title match and get it? Like, where is his credentials? I know WWE don't necessarily care about wins and losses, and that might be my answer, but like, it just doesn't seem right to me. But what's your thoughts on Goldberg's return?
No, it's not fucking right because he's and not. Let's think about. He's probably getting like $1 million every time he shows up on TV or whatever for a match. I'm pretty sure, or $500,000 to $500,000 to $1 million every time he wrestles. But I don't know. I think Vince McMahon for some reason has a soft spot in his heart for Goldberg, and I just can't figure out why. Because I mean, I don't think Goldberg's that big of a hot commodity to where everybody's just anxious to see one of his matches. I don't know if they like Saudi Arabia bringing back for the Saudi shows. I really don't know. I don't have an answer to that question. Goldberg's matches, they're less than 10 minutes long. They're uneventful. He has no personality. It's just he doesn't have the cult following that he had 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. So I just don't understand why Vince chooses to bring him back. It's just those unexplained phenomena that about Vince McMahon. Why does he treasure these talents so much, like Goldberg? I don't get it. And it's like I said, I don't know. Don't put it past him to take that title off for Roman Reigns. I mean, fuck, he did it with The Fiend. He did it with Brock Lesnar a year ago. It's just, I don't know. I don't understand. I don't know what's going on with this Goldberg ordeal other than it's just filler match and try to get his final match out of his contract, and hopefully they don't renew him for another one.
Yeah, it's bizarre. And like you just mentioned, that he could, easily become Universal Champion. I hope not, obviously, but you can't not put it past them. Like, they could do something crazy like this, and all of a sudden, the match at WrestleMania is Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar and Goldberg. Like,
yeah,
it just really, nothing makes sense from this whole story, because even Seth Rollins that came into this story has now been kind of thrown to the side. He had his one match with Roman.
Mm-hmm.
Roman got disqualified. He didn't get a rematch, and now Seth Rollins is in an elimination chamber match for the WWE title. Goldberg walks out of nowhere, pretends to acknowledge Roman Reigns, doesn't really acknowledge him, and lays out a challenge for the Universal Championship. And like, again, I know WWE don't do the wins and losses thing, but he's not a credible person to go after a championship. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't matter what his name is. There's people like
yeah.
Who could I name now? There's firstly Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins should definitely be probably getting a rematch in Saudi Arabia for the Universal title, and then maybe that's where Roman beats him there. There's other people doing some strong stuff. Big E has literally fallen off a cliff in terms of everything they booked around him, getting him to the title. He's now on SmackDown as a tag team competitor.
Well, they didn't have that story with Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins. They didn't finish that story.
Exactly.
The finish of the match at the Royal Rumble. To me, that's still they needed the rematch or whatever. But you could have put Randy Orton in there, or I'm sorry, anybody on SmackDown. If you look at it, they moved Big E over there. You could have put Drew McIntyre, somebody new. You could have put, anybody, Nakamura or whoever in there, just for filler. But then you bring back, at least to make it somewhat interesting. Goldberg is he's boring as fuck. It's going to be an 8-minute match at best. It's spear fest, spear. Whoever gets the last spear in, and that's it. But the good thing about this is we'll never have to see fucking Goldberg again. Hopefully after Saudi Arabia.
We hope. I can see someone in the chat, Yusuf Omar. He says this is Goldberg's last match, but they have pointed out that his contract runs through 2023. So that's a bit scary. But apparently, yeah, this is the last match on the contract. You just mentioned a great name there, Drew McIntyre. This is probably who should be facing Roman Reigns. I still believe that whenever Roman Reigns does lose and his powers and his titles all start disintegrating, that it is going to be Drew McIntyre, the man to beat Roman Reigns. And they could have put Drew McIntyre into this program to have a match with Roman Reigns for the Universal title in Saudi Arabia, and he could lose, and that can just add the fuel to the fire. And that would actually be, if I'm correct, the third time Drew McIntyre has lost to Roman Reigns, because he lost to Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 35, I think it was. He lost to Roman Reigns at Survivor Series last year, not 2021, 2020. And yeah, if he lost to Saudi Arabia, that'll be 3 times he's been, flat out beaten by Roman Reigns. So that would make the eventual win against Roman Reigns all the sweeter. Somewhat, of a kind of long-term story being told that he can't beat Roman Reigns. That's probably who should be facing Goldberg. Sorry, who should be facing Roman Reigns in Saudi Arabia and not Goldberg.
Well, I think I'm still under the impression that to give Roman Reigns his big WrestleMania win, he lost to Bobby Lashley last year. And then the year before, I believe he lost Roman Reigns. If I'm not mistaken. I'm not too sure about that. My timeline a little off, but I'm still under the impression that to give him his big WrestleMania win / moment, because and then then I don't know, because now they have him wrestling fucking Madcap Moss at Saudi Arabia. I mean, that doesn't do anything to build his story, his character, or what have you. But anyway, I still under the impression that they're still flirting with changing the main of WrestleMania and putting McIntyre against Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns to give him his big WrestleMania moment. I'm still under the impression that they're flirting with that idea. Okay, they did it last year. They did it with Edge, Roman, Edge, and Bryan Danielson, Daniel Bryan, because I don't believe at the last minute they kind of pumped the brakes on just making it Edge and Roman Reigns, because I really do think that Edge had lost some steam as far as a character at that point. And I just think maybe they're starting to put some more stock in maybe Drew McIntyre, and I think they're going to try to find a way to fit him into that main event at WrestleMania and give him his big WrestleMania moment.
Yeah, that's fair. I believe.
I'm not saying I like it. I'm not saying he deserves it.
No, I hear you, and I think they want to do that as well, like a re-coronation, if you like, in front of actual people this time.
Correct.
I think. Correct. Or I thought they may wait till this apparent UK stadium show that's going to happen in September in the UK. I thought maybe that might be the time when, at least maybe Roman would have held both belts by then, or unified both belts, and then Drew McIntyre beats him then. I thought that could be a possible way to do it, big UK win in front of like a home crowd, so yeah. But I think, as we could both see here, there are better candidates than Goldberg for this position. Seth Rollins definitely being one to continue the story. Drew McIntyre as well to kind of reheat him up. There could have been some other names as well, but hey, like I said,
Randy Orton. It could have been. I mean, because obviously they don't care about Raw and SmackDown and going back and forth anymore. So fuck, it could have been Randy Orton. It could have been Riddle. They could have put Big E. Whatever.
Yeah. But like we said, the one good news out of this, if true, that this is Goldberg's last match on the contract. So if this means that it is his last match and we can get it out of the way and move on from Goldberg in WWE, in a WWE ring anyway, then yeah, I'll take it. And yeah, hopefully, like I say, they stick to their word. And
fuck him. You do on Instagram. Fuck Goldberg.
Let's finish up with what seems to be the WrestleMania main events, all kind of cemented in position. Now, you've just said in our last conversation that you think Drew McIntyre could still get added to the men's main event of Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar. But yeah, Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar right now is for the Universal title. There is no talk of the WWE title. There's no talk of a unification match. However, it still seems likely that could happen. And on the women's side of things, Ronda Rousey has returned. She won the Rumble and she's come and called out Charlotte Flair. So Charlotte Flair versus Ronda Rousey for the SmackDown Women's Championship. Now, we'll come back and talk about Roman and Brock. We'll probably be talking about that quite a bit over the next few weeks. But Ronda returning, facing Charlotte at WrestleMania for the SmackDown Women's Championships. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, obviously they did it because they wanted a big marquee name in the main event, and they feel that Ronda Rousey can sell the tickets, sell the pay-per-views, or the subscriptions to Peacock or whoever has the network on whatever country. But dang, I mean, it's just fuck. I would have liked to have seen, you know, they just came out, a report came out, you know, Bayley's expected to come back pretty soon. Asuka's expected to come back very soon. I mean, Ronda, even if she wins, it's only going to be part-time, or she don't want to go back on the fucking road anymore. That's why she left in the first place. The road fucking killed her. I mean, I don't give a shit what she says. She's not going to want to hit the road on a limited basis, maybe for a MSG, Madison Square Garden show or whatever here and there. But I mean, you know, and I don't necessarily have a problem with part-timers necessarily. I just have a problem with it being fucking Ronda Rousey. I mean, you know, she said some pretty, and you can say maybe it was just kayfabe or whatever. She said some pretty derogatory things about WWE and the wrestling business, you know, outside of her time away from it. And that doesn't sit well with me. Her promo skills are awful. She fucking sucks. I think towards the end of her last run, going into WrestleMania 35, I believe, when she main evented with Becky and Charlotte, that at the end it was mentioned. I read somewhere that it was Paul Heyman helping her with her promos at the end. So, and that's why she started to improve a little bit. But I mean, it's outlet. Damn, I would have rather seen you know, Bayley jump in there against Charlotte. I think that would have been a fucking tremendous. I can watch Bayley and Charlotte. I can watch Sasha and Charlotte. I can watch Becky and Charlotte. I can watch any combination of those four in a main event at WrestleMania. You got me. You sold me. It could have been, I mean, I can watch those four wrestle every day or every week or whatever. You know what I mean? But then throwing Ronda in there just to kind of throw in there just to try to sell some tickets. I mean, I don't care how much time she puts in the Performance Center. I don't think her skills are going to be up to what the match it's going to be, what we all hope the match her and Charlotte have. I'm pretty sure Charlotte would rather work with somebody else. But I mean, there you go. That's your main event for fucking night one. I mean, if they were going to throw Ronda in there, I would have loved to see them at least finish the story with Becky.
So I think the thought is that Becky and Ronda are going to do this same dance next year in Hollywood, in the Hollywood WrestleMania. Whereas this year is going to be Charlotte versus Ronda. I think that's what the initial talk is. And contrary to what you just said, it seems as if as well Charlotte demanded this match, that she gets the Ronda match.
She did.
Yeah,
what?
Apparently that is what the talk is, that Charlotte is the one that wanted this match. And of course, being Charlotte, Charlotte Flair, they obliged.
Okay, hold on. What happened was, right, and I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure that Charlotte, they're bringing in Ronda. And no matter who Ronda was going to face, that was going to be the main event. So Charlotte just said, raise your hand, I'll take her, because Charlotte wants to be in the fucking main event of WrestleMania. So Ronda's main event, it's just all about who's going to be her opponent. And then Charlotte raised her hand, I'll take it because I want to be in the fucking main event. There you go. I'm pretty sure. Fuck, I mean, Charlotte would rather work with anybody else. I'm sure of it. I'm almost positive. I can 99% sure. But I mean, you know, damn, for Charlotte's gonna have her work cut out with her to get a good match out of Ronda Rousey. I mean, for Charlotte's sake, because I love Charlotte Flair, I think she's the greatest women's wrestler of all time. But I mean, you know, God bless her for trying to get a good main event out of out of Ronda Rousey. But I've seen anybody else other than Ronda. I mean, you got Bianca Belair. You got Bianca Belair in there. You got. Damn, this would have been a great time. This would have been a great time for Rhea Ripley. You got Rhea Ripley. I forgot about her. And then this would have been a great time to bring along Raquel Gonzalez also.
Yeah. Take it to the tables in the chat. Hope you're well, bro. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, I mean, my thoughts on Ronda Rousey. She doesn't, right now anyway, she doesn't really seem bothered. She looks like she's just here collecting a check, which that's probably what she's doing anyway. In terms of name value as well, like I'm not sure how much name value Ronda Rousey has in 2022. I know maybe still in this wrestling combat sports sphere, she probably is still, quite popular, but WrestleMania is like a worldwide thing. It's the mainstream of all mainstream wrestling events.
Sure.
And I'm not sure how much weight Ronda Rousey's name still has. When they brought her around, 2018, when she was kind of fresh out of the UFC, obviously she showed up at WrestleMania in 2015 as well, done that segment with The Rock and Triple H and Steph. It was all a bit more, what's the word? The timing was better because, she was still very much in the public eye with everything she does for UFC. Now, I'm not sure like that this is necessary, especially now, again, you want to have her back at next year's WrestleMania in Hollywood. I'm not too sure. But this was the minute that, you mentioned some good names, Asuka, Bayley, these guys, Sasha could have all came in, joined the Royal Rumble, won the Royal Rumble, and built towards their main event. The minute the rumors of Ronda was happening and Ronda actually entered at number 28, there's no way anyone else is winning. And it kind of killed the rest of the Rumble. And here we are. I think the only thing we can, wait to see now is how often she is going to be around over the next couple of months until WrestleMania to really build this story with Charlotte. She seems like she still needs to get her reps in, get back in, get sharper and all of that kind of stuff. Apparently she had a dark match after SmackDown this past week, so maybe she's getting there. But I'm just not too keen on bringing in people that don't seem to care. She doesn't seem to care anymore.
No, she was. I that when she first debuted a few years ago, that she at that time she was excited because she's a fan of the product, or at least she presented herself to be. She had some fire under her. But I mean, now she's just like he's going through the motions, and I think the fans would have a lot benefited more if it would have been Ripley or give us Rhea Ripley, because they've had her and Charlotte have had some tremendous matches in the past. I think that would have been, for at least for the hardcore fans, they would have loved it. I think for the fans overall, that would have been a much better marquee match for the night one of the WrestleMania. But we have to deal with Ronda now.
Let's talk about the men. Roman Reigns defended the Universal Championship against Brock Lesnar. They've seemed to go round in a circle, come back, under a bridge, over a hill, and this is like the match they've always planned to do. Although at one point, it looked a bit in jeopardy and stuff. I guess the only thing to really talk about here is Brock Lesnar going to win the WWE Championship back at Elimination Chamber? If he does, what was the point putting it on Brock Lesnar? What was the point putting it on Bobby Lashley in the first place? And then are they going to go ahead and do some type of unification match or title versus title at WrestleMania? What's your thoughts at this point?
Well, I think they're too keen on having a unification match for the titles unless they're getting ready to permanently eliminate one, which I don't think Vince McMahon's going to be too keen on. So I think there's going to be some shenanigans in the Elimination Chamber, and I don't think Brock's going to go over. The reason why I thought about it for a second is because there's been no talk or little to no talk as far as Bobby Lashley or whoever is the WWE champion going into WrestleMania on who his opponent's going to be or opponent's going to be. So that's the only reason why I thought, well, Brock will win the title. They'll this title match, and then whoever wins the title will have two belts until they lose one of them or whatever, the goose shit that they do nowadays. But I don't think they're going to go that route. I think there's going to be some shenanigans at Elimination Chamber, and Bobby will probably retain WrestleMania against Roman. But I do really think that there's a chance of Drew McIntyre making his way into that main event, because then who's McIntyre's going to be needs to have a match at WrestleMania, right? So who's he going to face? He hasn't been seen to start a program with anybody other than fuck if against Baron Corbin or Happy Corbin at WrestleMania. Damn, fuck, the mighty have fucking fallen. Shit, I mean. Yep. But I mean, so that's why I think that they're really going to squeeze in Drew McIntyre or squeeze him in there in the main event at WrestleMania. Go over. Now, if it's just Brock and Roman, then I see Roman retaining.
I mean, I see Roman winning regardless. It is, like we're saying, just a stipulation of the match. Take It to the Table says they officially don't care about the WWE title right now. Yeah, I don't think they do. They don't have a plan for it. However, I do believe if they do go this kind of unification route, or at least the one man carries both titles and it's not unified, they want to get it on Roman Reigns, because that's the title that has like all the lineage. That's the title that all the greats have held. So that's the one they want him to be holding, rather than the universal title. So I think they have to do some type of unification, or just have to make the stakes seem absolutely massive by the time we get to WrestleMania, Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns. Because right now it's not exciting, because
I think
we kind of see what's on the horizon already.
I think this is a detriment into the way WWE is in the state of chaos, and how would you put it, the state of flux that they're in right now. Because back in the day, you've heard people mention it on podcasts that have been involved with WWE, that WrestleMania, the main event, was planned out maybe a year, 6 months before. Now it just seems they just go on the fly, that things change every week. WrestleMania now is probably booked a month, 6 weeks before. Who knows? But it just shows the state of chaos and flux that WWE's in right now. And it's just running hot and cold, and they really don't know who to put where, or who's going to wrestle who's going to have the WWE title, who's Bobby Lashley going to wrestle now. And this just goes to show that this organization that they're at, and the state of flux that they're in right now, the state of limbo that they're in, very undecisive as far as like what they want to do and where they want to go. It's reflecting on the product, and it's reflecting on the fans also. WWE or wrestling's not necessarily a house show business anymore, like it was 30 years ago or whatever it was.
Yeah.
But house show numbers are down. Up until recently, Raw and SmackDown attendance was down and so forth. Everybody talks about ratings. I don't know. It's just, with everything being so much up in the air and back and forth, it's just the fans are really cramming for some consistency as far as, good product with good promos and good wrestling and good storylines. And they're just not getting that. And this could very easily turn out to be one of the worst WrestleManias of all time if they're not too careful. And it's in fucking Dallas with 100,000 people expected to give. They will not get 100,000 people in that state on Saturday or Sunday night. They will not.
Last time they said they did. I never really believed their attendance numbers or anything like that, but they said they did. But that was a one night WrestleMania, so yeah, to get 100,000 people. Go on, sorry.
I'm sorry. I was there. they could claim they were I would say they were at 80, maybe 90,000 for that WrestleMania, maybe. And that's because at the time they had a lot of injuries. That's the time I think Randy Orton was down, John Cena was out, Bray Wyatt was out, Brock Lesnar was supposed to wrestle Bray Wyatt and all this stuff. And I think John Cena was supposed to wrestle The Undertaker. If they had the suspected crowd, the suspected card that they originally planned, yes, there would have been 100,000 people there. I'm sure of it. But with the inconsistency of the product they have now, the storylines, the lack of character development that they have, there's no way they're going to sell 100 tickets to that thing on either night, on one night, let alone 2 nights.
2 nights, yeah.
It's
yeah,
insane.
I think I remember them saying that the attendance was like 101 or 102,000. But I thought, yeah, this is WWE. I don't know whether to trust that. But yeah, man, WrestleMania main events look to be set. It's always interesting going into WrestleMania, whether we're enjoying the booking or not. I think the men and women still find a way to put on a really good show on the night. So I'm looking forward to it.
We shall see.
We shall
see.
But people, that is the show. Thank you very much for joining us today. Please remember to smash the like button and subscribe to Wrestling Republic if you're watching us on YouTube. Thanks for everyone that tuned in to watch us on Instagram Live as well. And we will be back same time next week. Any last words, Ignacio?
Well, hopefully on TV this week, we'll get a lot more stuff that makes sense. And hopefully no gore until Saudi Arabia. But you guys take care. Smash that like button. I'll see you next week.
See you next week, guys.